Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. This is Tony. You're here at KGTR. We got a special treat. We're now going to start with the evolution of 80s heavy metal. As told by Hip Parader magazine, I thought let's start with the January edition of 1980. So join me in this series because we're going to cover as many magazines as we can from each year of Hip Parader, from 1980 through 1989. I pretty much have them all. I'm going to share them with you. We're going to peek into these magazines, see what the early bands were doing behind the scenes, how they were getting signed, and you're going to start seeing the covers and the images and the articles start to gravitate towards hard rock, towards glam metal, hair metal, and you're going to see the progression. So join me. We're going to first start with this issue. Look at the price on this issue, $1.25. With this magazine in 1980. This is January 1980. So we're going to start with the evolution. I'm calling it the evolution of 80s metal because we're going to start with January of 1980. So if you join me in this series, every video we're going to cover a new edition issue of Hip Parader magazine of every year. So join me, all right? This is now the first issue in this series. January of 1980, it features Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant on the cover, Hip Parader. Join me, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. It's going to be a great series. Join me and I'll see you all in this episode. All right, let's begin here. Well, here's the cover. Hip Parader. So this issue sold for $1.25 in January of 1980. Look at this beautiful color. We'll get to this later. So for the sake of this video, follow my cursor and we're going to look at both pages, okay? So look at this. Exclusive behind the scenes coverage by Lisa Robinson at Zepp's first concert in 2 years. Oh, and real quick, I will now be picking several articles from every issue and I'm going to do a separate video on those. So if you see an article on a band that you love, want me to cover, I am going to, regardless, do a brief little summary on that article or interview in another follow-up video. So if there's an article here on Kiss, the next video will probably be a summary or review on that article on Kiss. So we can look at the progression of these bands, what they were encountering as they started off, what they're finding on tour, what they're projecting their next album is going to be. So we can see their future, but we'll be looking into the past. Does that make sense? We're going to be going back to the future. We're going to go back to 1980, see what these bands were predicting for their future. All right, so follow me. All right, so this issue has Led Zeppelin Rocks Back, Ted Nugent, Nothing But the Facts, Kiss on Tour, Paul Stanley Talks. So I'm going to do a follow-up video after this video on this article, Kiss on Tour. This is 1980, where Paul Stanley is going to talk about the tour. Cheap Trick, Help the Who Rock. Rock news. We got Nick Lowe, Nantucket, Blondie, REO Speedwagon, Japan, Blues Brothers movie, The Stones album, Doobies, Party Neck, Patti Smith, style with David Johansen. All right, now look at this. Second page, the Marsdale pickups. Look at these, the Marsdale pickups. Dual sound humbuckers. I've never seen the X2N Power Plus. Have you seen that one? And look at the Super 2. That's Distortion Super 2. That's probably the Distortion Super 2. Maybe the Super 2. But let's say Distortion. Look at these pickups right here. All right. Let's go ahead into the next page. That was page 1 and 2. All right. Now, before we continue with this, look at this carbon guitar. I can remember it like it was yesterday. This is 1980. And I remember seeing this particular model. And for some reason, I love this look. I don't know if it's the domino style pickups on the humbucker. You know, they look like little dominoes, you know, almost. But this color design with the black and the natural wood and these cream colored pickups, the black rings, and I just love this guitar. I haven't looked for it yet, but this is the Carbon DC 150. But I should look for this guitar on eBay. I wonder how much it would sell for. So look, back then it sold for $460, and I bet you at minimum someone on eBay probably is selling this guitar for like $1,000 or $800. But someone out there has this guitar. I would love this guitar. Or I would love not Firehouse. What's the damn name? Firefly. I had to look over here for my guitar. Look. Look. Does that look good or what? Look. Woo! We'll get into that later. Alright. But look at this guitar. Look. The Carbon VC150. Oh, I want that guitar. I want the guitar. Alright, so hip breaker. Look at that. The table of contents here. We got Rock and Roll Hotline. Kiss rocks Madison Square Garden. Paul Stanley talks about some town rocking. We Read Your Mail. Guitars and Amps. Ted Nugent. Rolling Stones. Blues Brothers. Alice Cooper. Spin Addict Record Reviews. Japan. Nantucket. HP Discography. Cheap Trick. So Hip Parader's discography and Cheap Trick. Patti Smith. Blondie. So here's some new wave and some rock. Right? There's no heavy metal yet. Right? I wouldn't say Kiss was heavy metal, but this was hard rock, right? We got hard rock, and some little new wave here with Patti Smith, Blondie, REO Speedwagon, Blue Oyster Cult, Led Zeppelin, Centerfold, Led Zeppelin, Nick Lowe. So we're going to see what's in this issue. Alright, look at this pedal here. Small Tone. The Small Tone Phase Shifter is a rich palette of colors for all the feelings your music can be, from urgent, vibrant shades to gently rolling, medium hues. That's why it's the world's most popular electronic musical accessory, Small Tone. I don't remember this pedal. You're back in the 80s. If you remember it, let me know. I wonder if you can find this on eBay. So look, Rock and Roll Hotline, ABBA's first U.S. tour. So in 1980, this is the January issue. So you can believe in 1980 they're about to tour the U.S. for the first time. Cheap Trick guest star with The Who. That's pretty cool, right? So Cheap Trick is going to open up for The Who. And The Doors Renaissance Manzarek album. And here, the Rock and Roll Star story continues. There's that right there. Next up we have Doobie's Party All Night, little article there. Led Zeppelin back on stage. There's a double neck guitar. There's Doobie Brothers. Remember, this is 1980. There's no heavy metal technically yet. The Knack make the big time in 13 days. Look at that. So they just released their My Sharona, and they just skyrocketed to huge fame. So this would be a great little article here. Let me know if you want me to do a little review on it. I can. Pure Prairie League, Don't Hold Back. Now see, look at this. Kiss rocked Madison Square Garden. Paul Stanley talks about hometown rocking. So this article here, I'm going to do a follow-up video in the next video on this article. So stay tuned for that one. We're going to summarize it, go over this article, because I want to know and share it with you what Kiss was doing in 1980. This is 2025. We're going back in time to 1980, the January issue. Look at this beautiful, and Ace, look at that. Ace Frehley just passed away. This is probably their Dynasty tour right here. I believe this is their Dynasty tour. Alright, another ad. This is an ad for Men and Women Shed Up to 20 pounds in a week. So there's that. We Read Your Mail. Spina versus Nugent. Dear Hip Parader, talking about Kiss. Elton John, some fan mail right there. Again, we're just going over the content of this issue. But if there's a particular article you want me to review, leave them in the comments below, because I'm definitely going to do the Kiss article in the next video on this. Before we go into the next issue, February of 1980, we're going to follow up on that Kiss article, January of 1980. So that's where I'm going to go with this. So if you see any articles or interviews you want me to follow up on, just leave them in the comments below, and I will do the follow-up video next for you. Look at this. Guitars and amps, power drumming with Gilmore. Triumph's drummer explains his wall shaking technique. So again, look, this is very small print, right? So I'm not going to zoom in on it, because I just want to get the gist of it. But if you're interested in this article, I'll be more than happy to do the follow-up. Again, I'm doing the follow-up review on the Kiss article. This one, Ted Nugent, nothing but the facts. The following information is the latest official Nugentiana for those of you who are keeping track. Alright, the Stones in the studio. You know how many records they made since 1980, the Rolling Stones? It'd be fascinating to see what they're talking about right here. Alright, next up in this issue, Alice Cooper's Art Store Firebomb. Blues movie from Blues Brothers. Here it talks about the Blues Brothers movie. Rock action. This is Spin Addicts. So this is about record reviews right here. Again, the print is very small. That's okay. I'm just giving you the gist of what's in this issue. This one's talking about Jimi Hendrix, AC/DC, David Johansen, Peter Tosh. Peter Tosh was pretty big in 1980, reggae artist. Look at the Kinks, the Records. I vaguely remember the band called The Records, but they went nowhere. And the Clash, they were up and coming punk band in 1980, making their wave. Life in Tokyo. So there was a band, kind of like new wave-ish, called Japan. The Sun Never Sets on British rock band, Life in Tokyo, Japan. Again, look at the hair, look at the styles. This is right around Duran Duran era, like glam stuff with the suits. People started wearing those suits and the really long skinny ties and the pastel colors and the hair and the makeup. I love it. I love it. And MTV had a lot to do with it. Alright, this talks about Nantucket, heartthrobs, and human energy. So here's an article on that one. This is continuation of that article right there. Alright, a continuation here. Remember this little ad right there? Alright, Hit Parader's instant discography, Cheap Trick. Talks about their albums right here. Rock action. Are you a rock and roll undesirable? In California, they still afraid of their children. The Starlight Bowl in Burbank. Alright, rock action. Blondie, A Walk in the Park, A Kiss in the Dark. So here's Blondie, look at Blondie. Blondie was pretty big. Her and Pat Benatar were the top female rock performers at the time. Blondie and Pat Benatar. Distinct music. They're both equally cranking out the hits. And I don't know if they're competing against each other, but I think they pushed each other. And Blondie was having a lot of hits, and Pat Benatar was having a lot of hits also. Hit Me With Your Best Shot, You Better Run, You Better Hide, all that stuff. Oh, I love it. Heartbreaker and all that stuff. And I remember Quarter Flash, Find Me Another Fool, Find Another. She was like a Pat Benatar wannabe. Alright, look at this one. REO Full Speed Ahead with High Energy Rock. So High Infidelity, remember the album? That album kicked ass. If you haven't heard it, obviously their best album to date. Their probably highest grossing selling album was High Infidelity. I remember that in junior high. It was all over the radio airwaves, High Infidelity. I don't know if this is talking about High Infidelity. I just remember that album kicked ass. This is 1980. So I think it came out in 80, 81. There's REO Speedwagon right there. Oh, if you want me to do an article review on REO Speedwagon, I'll be happy to. Alright, Blue Oyster Cult, Step Through the Looking Glass. Alan Lanier reflects on reflections. So this is 1980, and they're probably talking about the early rise of Blue Oyster Cult and how they got to where they are in 1980. Remember, this is now the issue January of 1980, so probably these articles and interviews were probably done sometime in the fall, winter of 1979 for the January 1980 issue, just to keep that in perspective. Alright, this is more on Blue Oyster Cult. This is a very lengthy article, so anybody out there want me to do a summary of this, a video summary of this interview article, I'll be more than happy to. If not, I'm not going to. But I'm definitely going to tell you which articles I do plan on following up on. And definitely I want to follow up on the Kiss. If I get to the Van Halens, then obviously start getting to those early bands coming out, like the Rats and the, Dawkins, whatever. I'll get to those follow-up videos. Again, this video in general is just to show you, look inside this issue. Right, look, this is Led Zeppelin. Remember, this had Robert Plant on the cover. So this is about Led Zeppelin's first tour in 2 years, I believe. I think the last tour in 78 or 77. So they're back on the road in 1980. All right, Nick Lowe, he a pop rock artist. Nick Lowe, Opinion of Rock. Take it for now and forget about it. So this is a nice little article on Nick Lowe. So if you're a fan of Nick Lowe and you're curious what he had to say back in 1980, if you're curious, I'll be happy to do a summary video of this article interview. Okay, so just let me know below. And again, with any feature band, I'll be more than happy to do the follow-up video. So I'm going to do one video of look inside the issue, and then I'm going to pick 1 or 2 articles from the issue to do a follow-up before we get into the next issue. Alright, In Style with David Johansen. Now, I like David Johansen, and sometimes I didn't like David Johansen. He bugged me, and then at the same time, I liked him. So it was weird. It was like a love-hate. Obviously, he just recently passed a few years ago, but overall, very talented singer, songwriter, and he has some good hits, and his career was cut short, if I can be honest with that. You never want to see the performers and artists and movie stars pass away too soon. You'd love for people just to die naturally in their 90s, right? In their 90s. That's always a good year, a good age to pass away is the 90s. You're not there to 100, but you lived a full life. So this is all about David Johansen. More on David Johansen over here. This is a song index back then in the 80s and 70s. If you didn't have the album, but you heard the songs a lot on the radio, you can always get these magazines or check them out at your local convenience store. Back then, it would probably be like, there was no AM, PM mini market, but there were Circle K's, 7-Elevens, gas stations where they had Hit Parader, Cream, Circus magazines. And you would open these magazines up, and they would let you read them back then. And you can look at the words to your favorite song and either memorize it, write it down, whatever you wanted to, and so forth. All right, and there again, more lyrics for the favorite songs. Look at this. Gibson and Fender copy guitars. Look at this. Special edition. So warehouse prices for example, LP type black, $108. So look at this. Back then, they were making replicas. This is before the lawsuits came out, I think. But they're making replica Les Paul guitars back then. Look at the pearl inlays and the headstock. I don't know if it's got the logo on it, but that looks like a very good Les Paul copy back in 1980. And Yamaha was doing it, Ibanez was doing it, Hondo Guitars was doing it. They were making copies back then. But if companies got really good at the copies, and those copies were selling like hotcakes, that's when Gibson put a lawsuit and say, hey, cut it out. All right, these are just basically ads and more lyrics. Again, just ads and more lyrics. That's what these magazines are. Back then, it was a big deal to be able to buy. Remember, there was no internet, no websites. Everything was snail mail. Oh, the good old days. See where it says t-shirts and posters? You would look on here and look for your favorite artist if you could. Let's say you found the Beatles, and you would mail in 50 cents or $1 to get the catalog. So you mail 50 cents or $1 to get the catalog. Wait like 2-3 weeks to get that catalog. When you got that catalog, then you would have a list of all their stuff. T-shirts, stickers, whatever. Your favorite artists, bands, baseball caps, maybe jackets. And then you would basically say, okay, I want to order this, that, and the other. And then you write a check, cash or money order, you were bold, you would send cash in, but you shouldn't. But back then, you didn't care. You'd mail it in, and then like 2-3 months later, you'd get your stuff back. I remember you getting all pissed. It's like, where's the mail? Where's the mail? There's no one to call to follow up on. You can't say, hey, customer service, I mailed my check 6 weeks ago, and they're saying, sorry, it should be getting to you. So I remember a long time ago, real short, I mailed something from the KISS Army. Let's say I mailed it on a Monday. I'm thinking I'll probably get it like in a week or two. I probably got like 3-4 months later. And it came out of nowhere. I was like so happy when I got it. It was a KISS booklet. But it came like about 3-4 months later. I was crying because I never got it. They ripped me off. It was $5. I was a little boy. That was a lot of money for me. And I felt stupid, but sure enough, 3-4 months later, hey, Tony, you got something in the mail. What? And it was my KISS thing. So I was like, oh. But back then, if you mailed something, you weren't going to get it for like another 4 or 5 months. You weren't ripped off. It was total snail mail back then. All right, again, more lyrics back here. We're almost done with this issue. Again, back then, this issue was 1980, January. So I guess they put all the meat and potatoes at the beginning with the photos, the status, the latest buzz on your bands and whatnot. All right, here we go. So remember that article on KISS? This is the continuation of that KISS article. Now, back then, to see these pictures in a magazine, again, no internet. All you can do to see your band is to live through a magazine. Or maybe if you're lucky to go to a concert. Maybe they're on Don Kirshner's rock concert. Maybe there's a TV special on where you see your favorite artist, which would be very, very rare. There was no VHS tapes back then yet. And so, yeah, basically, you would get these magazines to get the latest news, buzz on upcoming records. That's why you wanted to see where they were going to tour, when their next record would be out, and so forth. And you look at these magazines, and I would clip them out. Oh, I need this magazine, and so forth. And here we go. All right, again, this is on REO Speedwagon right here. This guitar player, Gary Richrath, I think it's Gary? Yeah, Gary Richrath, died too young. Very, very talented player. He's got a lot of footage on YouTube. Just look up REO Speedwagon Live. Basically anywhere from 1979 to 83, 84, you'll see him performing. And very, very solid guitar player. I put him up there with Neil Sean, actually. I did. I put him up there with Neil Sean. He was along that type of a player. Melodic, kind of fiery, wasn't as name recognition as Neil Sean, but REO Speedwagon at times was a good competitor to Journey back then. So they were pretty good. Again, if you're interested in this article on the early REO Speedwagon, I'll be happy to. Again, this is a Nick Lowe continuation. And this is a continuation of the Blue Oyster Cult article. And this is it. This is the last of the issue of Hit Parader. And there is the last page right there. There it is right here. And those are the issues of Hit Parader. Come back to there. Come back over here. And then open this up to double. And there we go. That was as you can tell right here, inside Blue Oyster Cult, Step Through the Looking Glass. This was the very first issue of Hit Parader, January edition, 1980. This sold for $1.25. That was kind of like a lot. Looking back, it was cheap, right? Looking back, it's cheap. But back then, it was a good change, I would get a couple of quarters from recycling Coke bottles. And back then, you recycled bottles of your sodas, bottles of beer, whatever. If you have bottles, you go to your 7-Eleven, redeem the bottles, get some change, buy some candy, or get a magazine, whatever, or get an allowance and buy your magazine. And so, what do you think about this issue of Hit Parader, January 1980? Now, real quick, look at these bands that they're focusing before we say goodbye. Led Zeppelin, Kiss. Now, obviously, you have Rush somewhere in there. You got Triumph in there somewhere. You got Cheap Trick. This is pretty much rock, hard rock. Now, obviously, this issue has no mention of Van Halen, right? Van Halen was very heavy for 1978. 1979 was Van Halen 2. And 1980, this is the beginning of 1980. So that's going to be what? Women and Children First. So this is January of 1980. You have to imagine that Van Halen was touring their Van Halen 2 in early 1980, right? So sometime in 1980, they're going to release Women and Children First. So they look for that issue to come out maybe later in 1980, where they start covering Van Halen. But right now, this is pretty much like rock and hard rock. There's no heavy metal yet. That's why I love it, the evolution of heavy metal. Now you can say, yeah, there's Judas Priest, there's Iron Maiden in the UK, there's all these, you know, what's that band with Lemmy, Motorhead. Yes, there was heavy metal. I'm talking about in the US, there was no really heavy metal. Maybe the closest to heavy metal would probably be like Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, the Scorpions maybe perhaps, and Van Halen. But that's pretty much like hard rock. You got because back then you had Triumph. They're pretty heavy and hard rock. Triumph was as heavy as Judas Priest in 1980. So was Black Sabbath. They're pretty much all like hard rock, but they haven't gotten to metal yet. So it's going to be great to see when these early heavy metal bands, basically it's going to be Quiet Riot and Def Leppard and Motley Crue, that are going to be the three bands that caused start 80s heavy metal in the US. Def Leppard, Quiet Riot, and Motley Crue. So this is 1980. We haven't gotten to 1983 yet, when those bands were exploding. So let's see the journey of how we get there. Alright, I'm Tony. Hope you like this series. If I talk too much, well, that's too bad. I talk too much. I just wanted to show you the insides of these issues. So stay tuned. We're going to be going through every issue of Hit Parader of all the years of the 80s, 1980 through 1989. Then later we'll get into after 80 metal from 1990 and so on. But for this series, the evolution of 80s metal, I want to focus on Hit Parader magazine. So I got all the issues of every month of every year, around 99.9%. Around 99% of the issues I have. So I want to share them with you. And then, we just covered the January 1980 issue. I'm going to give you, as the next video, it'll be a short video, a summary of the interview or article on that Kiss from this issue. So every issue is going to have a follow-up video on a particular band or artist that they're featuring. Now, if you want me to do Ted Nugent summary, I'll be happy to do Ted Nugent. A Cheap Trick, I'll be happy to. If you see a particular band artist article in any issue, let me know in the comments below that you want me to do a follow-up video on the particular article, and we'll do a summary. I can do the summary of an article or an interview, or if you want me to read it, I'll read it out loud. That's up to you. I'll give you the summary, but if you want me to read it verbatim, I can do that also. All right. Thank you for joining me in this premiere episode issue of the evolution of 80s metal. This was Hit Parader January issue from 1980. Sold for $1.25. I'm Tony. Thank you for joining me here at KGTR at the Headbangers Hideout. And yes, you're like, what's Popular Girl? That's my logo. That's my brand. That's my brand. That's my brand. But I also have, look, can you see this? I also have Aloha. Remember Mr. Hand from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, right? What else do I have here? I also have my other brand, like my brand. There's my brand. Remember Sugar Bear? I'm also Sugar Bear. So all these are my brands. So every video, I'm going to have a different brand. I love having fun with my audience and my brands. I love it. I love it. All right. I'm Tony. Thanks for joining me. Welcome back. And again, yes, the guitar videos are coming. I'm going to slide those in between these evolution of 80s video videos. And real quick, when I play guitar, I'm just going to come in, probably no talking, probably play for like 2-3 minutes, and that's it, and then another video, all right? Any lessons, let me know, otherwise there'll be no lessons. Any guitar tones, let me know, otherwise there won't be any guitar tones, right? This channel is for you, and my content is for you. Tell me what you want, and I'll give it to you. If you don't tell me what you want, I'm going to give it to you, all right? Thanks, everybody. I'll see you all in the next video, which will be Kiss on Tour, Paul Stanley Talks. So the next video, stay tuned, it's going to be a recap on the article interview, Kiss on Tour, Paul Stanley Talks, as given by Paul Stanley in January of 1980. All right, I gotta go. I'll see you all in the next video.